Okay. So far we talked about the events, how we can communicate between the events between the components that are related with each other. We are definitely going to see the concept, like if the components are not related with each other, how we can communicate them. But we have planned that in the later part of our course. So please be patient, and you really don't need to worry about that. Are we covering that part or not? So what we are going to cover today is we are going to cover a very important concept that is called as configuration file in Lightning Web Component. So if some of you has already been worked with Aura components, you might be familiar about design component that is there in Lightning Aura component. So similarly, we have got a configuration file in our Lightning Web component, which is basically used for exposing our Lightning Web component to the Lightning app builders. So far we have been using Lightning Aura components for displaying the output, right? Lightning Aura application, and within that Aura application, we are using our own component and then displaying the outcome. And now what we are going to do here is, from this video onwards, we are really going to utilize the configuration file, expose our component to the appropriate Lightning app builder where we need, and then we are going to see the outcome there within the Salesforce environment itself instead of using the Lightning Aura component. So these are some of the places where we can use our Lightning Web component, like Lightning record page, home page, application page. We can also create use our component as a tab. We can use our component within the digital experiences communities. And this is a very special where we can utilize our component within the community. We can also utilize our component to develop the community, the complete theme, right? We have menus, we have profile picture, we have the user profile and all those things. So we can use the LWC for developing those as well. We can use our Lightning web component within the flow builder as well, within email or Outlook inbox, as well as the quick action. There are other Lightning targets that we can define where we can use our components, but these are the main and important ones that you will be frequently using, especially these three, and then this community one. These are the four components that you will be mostly using in your day-to-day developer life. So what is a configuration file in Lightning Web Component? So if you remember, we've talked about that there are three main components: HTML, JavaScript, and XML file, that meta XML file. So meta XML file is the file that is used to expose your Lightning Web component, as we talked about, to the various Lightning app builders pages, like record page, app page, home page, community, the chat. Chat means our standard chat that we have talked about, that we have basically the omni channel and the live agent. Mails in the utility bar as well. We can use our component within the utility bar, quick action flows, and there are so many actions that we can utilize. And we will share the more information, and we will share a link where you will be able to go visit and read about each and every action. So this is how your XML file is going to look like by default. And this version might be different because this is the screenshot which I've taken way before. So it might be either 56 or maybe 58 is the latest version in the sandbox, but 57 is there in the production. So we might see as 56 or 57. Then there is a component which is really important called is exposed. This is a Boolean value. This accepts a Boolean value that you really have to tell the system either you wanted to expose this component to the Lightning App Builder or not. So this Boolean flag is going to decide either your component is going to be available to the Lightning App Builder pages or not. If you say that your component should be available into the Lightning App Builder pages, you really need to define what are all the targets, what are all the places where you really want to have your Lightning Web component visible. So this is a quick, I've got a screenshot. So this is, again, this is my component on the top. If you see here where my red cursor is going on, and this component actually accepts few of the things like what is the picklist value, the current pick list value. So basically, these are some of the inputs that I'm taking from the user before the user can use my component. So we'll talk about that later on, when to take the inputs and when not. So that's what we are going to do today. We're going to play around with the meta XML file. We are going to play around with the different targets. We are also going to play around how to take the inputs and how not to take the input. Any questions so far? So I have, we really need to create a new component for the demo purpose. So we have just created design component. On this time, if you see, I've got design, Cs and caps, and then we have got component. So just select this component. The very first thing that we have to do is we really need to go to our meta XML file, which is design component.js-meta.xml. And you can clearly see here, right? You can clearly see that this is a XML file. That's why we have got the XML tag at the top. The version of the XML is 1.0, and encoding that we are using is UTF-8. This tag, that is Lightning Web Component Bundle, it is showing that this is a Lightning Web component, and every kind of metadata is going to have its own meta XML file. Like Apex class is also going to have a meta XML file. Object is also going to have its meta XML file, and every XML file is going to have a topmost tag which will tell what kind of metadata it is, either object, class, trigger, pages, everything that you're going to see there. Now, if we really want to expose our component to the Lightning App Builder, the very first thing that we need to do is we need to say change the value of is exposed variable from false to true. And then there are few tags that you can have, that master label. So this is a tag that you have master label where L is in caps for label, and you can have here your name, let's say design component. Now I'll let you know where this master label comes into the picture. And then you could have a description tag as well, which will basically, this description tag is completely for the purpose of telling for which purpose your component is being used. So I'm saying design component demo purpose. Okay. Now, so far what we did is we said, okay, I want to expose my component, which is a design component, to the Lightning App Builder, that we said is exposed to true. Then we just defined some master label and description. Now Salesforce says that, okay, you have exposed your component, and now tell me which place you wanted to use your component. Like either it is a record page, app page, or home page, or you wanted to use all of these three places, or maybe at utility bar, maybe as a tab, as a quick action. So we have to tell Salesforce explicitly that these are the places where I wanted to use my component. So for that, what we really need to do is we really need to define the targets. Okay. These targets are going to define at which place you are going to use your component. So there is a tag called targets. Okay. So this is a parent tag, targets. As it is a plural label, right? We have to define multiple targets here. So you say target. So as I have selected the target, it was like this. Maybe I said target, right? So you can see that there is there is already a pre-populated keyword that we see target. And if you select this target, it is going to add a open target tab as well as closing target tab. And your target is going to be selected, and you will see that these are the targets where we can use our Lightning Web Component. So if I wanted to use my web component into the application page or into the home page of any application. So what is the home page? Okay, let's log in into the Salesforce org. Okay, so sales is my application and home, this is my home page. Okay, so if I wanted to use my component here, I will use lightning underscore underscore home page. Now let's say if you wanted to use your component into the account record page. Okay, you wanted to use your component somewhere here, like here or maybe anywhere in the record page, then you have to use lightning underscore underscore record page. If you wanted to create a tab for an application sales, right, then you have to use lightning underscore underscore app page. Similarly, in the bottom you can see there is a to-do list called this is a to-do list, which is basically a utility bar. So if we wanted to use our component within the utility bar, we can use that utility bar targets. Okay, so we have already talked about the different targets. So let's say remove the targets and maybe use control space, and you will see all the targets here. Okay, and there is one more thing to know all the targets. What you can do is, as we all have installed LWC sort keys extension, so you can use LWC. As soon as you type LWC, you will see there is something called LWC target. So if you select this, it is going to give you the all possible targets. Some of them are going to be used and some of them will be in a comment format. Okay, so but you really need to know how you can apply it without taking the help of this extension as well. That's why I just walked you through how you can going to apply the target. So we have just by default, we have used lightning record page, we have used lightning app page, and we have used lightning home page. If you want to utilize the same component as a lightning tab, so this is your target name, lightning underscore underscore tab. If you wanted to use your lightning component as a utility bar, or maybe within your screen flows, okay, or maybe within the community, these are the two tags that you have to use for the community. Okay, these are the two tags which are used for using our component within the community. These are the two tags which are used our component to build a community. So developing a community is a complete different thing than using our component inside a community. So when we say developing a community, that means you are developing the complete theme of your community, and on top of that theme, you are developing your component. You are using your component. And when we say that we are using our component inside a digital experience or Salesforce community or Salesforce Experience Cloud, then we are going to use these two tags. Okay, and let's quickly have some HTML file over here, maybe LWC colon card. Okay, the title I will change it to design component. I'll keep the icon as same. Let's remove this button, and as usual, change the paragraph to division tag. And now let's deploy this. So any questions so far? How you are going to define the targets and other things? Any confusion? Okay. So let's first add our component within the home page. So go to the application home page, any application home page, click on gear icon and select edit. So once you click on edit, this is the Lightning App Builder page. So if you see here on the top right, this is the Lightning App Builder page, and it has here there is only one record which I've modified. We can create pages, and this is the home page default. So if you wanted to utilize your component is going to come here on the left hand side in the below under custom. Okay, so if we like collapse this standard, you will see under the custom there are two components. One is design component and one is my component. So if you remember, we have given this XML file master label as design component. This is where the master label comes into the picture. You will see the master label. If you don't give the master label, you will see the folder name, which is design component. So you just have to do drag and drop and place it where you want it to place. Now, if you see here, your CSS and everything else is being taken care by Salesforce itself, and you really don't need to extend any class. Go ahead and click on save. And once you click on save, so if you're trying to modify the component for the first time, you will see the screen like this, where it will say you have to activate this page. Okay. And then activate. Click on activate basically. And then if you see here, there are multiple options. We are not going to talk about these options. We will select assign org as default and then again do save. And then hit again on the save button to make sure that our changes has been saved. And then click on this back button. You will be back into your Lightning homepage. And you will see your component is here, whatever the HTML code that you have. Now, if I really wanted to change my HTML code, maybe if I say LWC colon input, type is text, I can label, say that first name. Okay. My like first name and last name, then email. And then on another division tag, I really wanted to have a LWC button. So this is a simple form that we have developed, right? We're not going to define this handle click. That is really, I'll say, enough for me to demo the changes. So if you really have something as a outcome as a UI in your component after deploying the changes, if you go there and refresh this, okay, we just deployed. I think Venki, you need to go on mute. Okay, so you can see here, right? We have got the design component, we've got first name, last name, email, and then there is a button. So the UI is coming up here, whatever we want. And if you see here now, footer is also coming in the middle. So that's how the footer is designed. But when we are using the same component into the Lightning application, into Lightning Aura application, then this footer is basically getting disturbed and being displayed here on the right. But the ideal place for our footer is in the middle of your Lightning middle of your Lightning card. Okay. So you can clearly see that we've got inputs. The button is there. If you want to have some padding on margin on top of this button, you can easily have that to give a clear space between this email input and this create contact button. Okay, that's the one thing. But there are some use cases where you really wanted to kind of take the input from the admin. Maybe let's say that you're trying to display a data table component, which is going to display maybe the dynamic data table component. Okay, where you say, okay, give me the object API name, give me the field API name, and then I'm going to display the data table for those components, for those fields, the given fields for that object. Okay. So at the time of setup, your admin or whoever is setting up the component can provide the input for your component. And then once your admin has provided the input based on the provided input, you can take the action. Okay. Just a very simple example. Let's again edit this component, or sorry, this page. And then if you click on this, if you select your component on the right hand side, you don't see any input being displayed here for now, right? You really don't see any input. Now, maybe if I try to say record, maybe detail base. Okay. Not here. I'm going to maybe navigate to a different account. So this is my account. I'm going to edit this account page. And within this record detail page, if you search for, maybe you will say record detail, right? And if you just drag and drop here somewhere, you just do drag and drop. So this record page, this actually works a way that it takes the record ID from the URL and display the information. But you will see that sometimes if you really wanted to utilize some components, you really have to give the like this related list single. Let's say if I use related list single, okay. And if you select this here on the right hand side, you will see, right, what is the parent record you wanted to use, okay. Then what is the related list you wanted to display? Maybe cases. You clearly see here now cases are coming up. And what is the list type? It is a basic or enhanced. Right. So if you say enhanced, you will be able to see more details on your related list. So basically the same way, if your component requires to take the inputs from the user, okay, how you can do that? That's what we are going to see next. So let's say that your component is being utilized in a Lightning homepage, and within Lightning homepage, you wanted to take the input, maybe parent API name or maybe object API name, and the list of fields that you wanted to take. And then based on the object API name and list of fields, you wanted to query the records, fetch the records, and display the data table dynamically. So how you will define is, I'm going to get rid of this these commented targets so that we will have some space. So what you really have to define is, you really have to define a tag called target configs. As again, it indicates that this is a plural label. You have to define the different target config. Okay, so this is how your target config going to look like. Now this target config says that, okay, you really want to do the configuration, but for which target you want to do the configuration. So let's say that I want to do the configuration for my Lightning homepage. Okay, this is my target. Maybe if I have Lightning utility bar, I can do the comma separated and paste it. So we can provide multiple targets over here, comma separated. And then we can also have multiple target configs, like we have multiple targets here. So we can have multiple target configs as well. So these are the two target configs that I'm defining for now. So we just define that, okay, there is some configuration that is required, but we are yet to define which configuration we need. So to take the input, what we have to do is we have to utilize the property tag. Okay, there is a property tag which is going to take the name of your variable, the name of your property, and the type of your variable. It could be a string, integer, number, boolean. And I think there is something called not as object. There is a different type which accept the as object as well as an input. So maybe you can say object API name as an input. Okay, type is going to be a string. You can also utilize some other attributes like description. So you can say the description, what is the description of your maybe component. You can say provide the so this is the description, and then there is something called label. So you can also give the label as well, like object API name. Okay, and then let's quickly have one more property tag, and this time we will say field API names. Okay, this is basically the list of records. So we will say it is going to have a string format. The type is going to be a string, and we will say description. And then you can say yeah, so this is what we have as a description, and then we can have label, and we can say field API names, and you can also have maybe within a parenthesis, you can have comma separated. And then there is also one thing called default. You can also have some default value, like let's say that name, ID, or rating. And you can also define either this attribute is required or not. And then similarly here, you can also have maybe default where we say object API name is account, and this is required. Okay, these are the two properties that we really want. And then when we are in the Lightning record page, maybe we wanted to accept some other property. It could be maybe, let's say, number of records, and the type is integer or maybe number. And default, we could say 2. I think number, it should be like this. Description is number of contacts to be created, and label as well number of contacts. Okay. The type is basically not the valid type, so we need to use integer instead of number. So these are the some of the inputs that we wanted to take from the user. So now what we are saying is that if you really wanted to use my component within the home page and Lightning utility bar, you definitely have to provide these two variables. And if you wanted to use my component within the record page, record detail page, you definitely have to provide the input for this number of records properties, number of record property. But if you try to deploy this, you will get the error. And there is a reason behind that. So you can see here, it says that object API name property does not exist on the component. And the reason is that, as we talked about, right, @API property is used to expose or used to take the input from the parent component or from the Lightning App Builder. So any property that we are basically taking the input from the users, we have to define into the component, into the JavaScript file that are decorated @API. So we have to define all three properties. So one is object API name, one is field API names, and the third one is number of records. @tag or the normal variables or the normal properties are not going to work here. And then if you really wanted to put the input here, maybe let's have another, I'll say another component, which is again having the same class. And here we can have the input of our components that we're taking the input, like object API name. Okay. And within the division itself, let's have a paragraph. So the paragraph are going to create the separate lines for each component. Then field API name, and then number of records. Okay, let's go ahead and deploy this. Any questions so far? Okay, so I don't see any question or any confusions. I'll just go ahead quickly. Now we are in Salesforce. We are going to refresh this page. We are in the home page. Click on edit, click on setting and click on edit page. And this time, if you select this component, which is your component, you can see that you're taking two input from the user, because we are on the Lightning App Builder. We are taking object API name, we are taking field API name, comma separated. Okay. And if you see here, this is the label of our whatever the label we have provided. And if you see that there is an eyeball icon, not eyeball, the information icon. If you hover over, you will see the description that we have provided, which says that provide the object API name to develop the data table. So basically, the whatever the description that you provide is really going to add it as a information for the user, for the end user, where you are telling that, okay, what kind of information you need to provide as an input in order to make this component work. Otherwise, this component is not going to work. Okay. So if you see here now on the right hand side, from here, you see account and the field API, like the object API name and the field API names are coming up over here. And if I just add, maybe change something, say industry, And if I say phone, fax, right? And then hit any put your cursor or hit your cursor out of anywhere, you will see, right? You will see here, right? We've got design component, we say account, and this is basically our components that we have. Maybe if you wanted to change it to contact, you will also see that the contact is getting changed immediately. Okay. And then do the save, hit back button, and you will see that your information is being displayed over here. Now let's talk about the detail page. Okay. So we are here. We really wanted to add our component into the record detail page. So we have to follow the same process for clicking on that gear icon and then selecting the edit page. And here we will find our component called design component. I just drag and drop over here. So now you see that we are only able to see the number of contacts and the value that whatever the default value we have given. If I say 10, I will see 10 over here. We are also able to see the account over here, which is object API name. How we are able to read it, I'll let you know. But for now, if you see the value that we are taking the input from the user, you are easily able to take the input. Click on save and activate the page. So that's the one thing. But let's say that your component is reusable and you really wanted to utilize within your Lightning record pages for different components like account, contact, and case. And based on the record that you are in and based on the object API name, you wanted to perform some action. Maybe if you're on the account page, you wanted to display the list of cases. If you are on a contact page, you wanted to display the list of cases. But if you are an opportunity, you might want to display the list of contacts that are associated to that opportunity as a contact role. So how you can dynamically read this record ID and this API name. So to read the record ID and the API name from any record detail page that you are in, what you have to do is to read the API name, you really have to utilize this syntax as it is @API and utilize object API name. Object API name as it is, like where A and N are going to be in capital. And if you wanted to read the record ID, so you have to use API, use record ID like this, record I as in a caps and then ID in a small, and print this record ID maybe here in your component HTML file. So this record ID, which like the variable with record ID as it is decorated with @API, the variable for object API name as it is decorated with @API are going to dynamically read the record ID and the object API name. So now in whatever the okay, it's deployed now. There could be a cacheable issue. That's why we need to refresh a couple of times. Now you see here we're really not able to display it. So basically, there is a setting in our Lightning, not in our Lightning, in our Salesforce component within session settings. Okay. So if you go to setting and session settings, there would be a checkbox which should be enabled, and that is enable secure and persistent browser cache to improve the performance. So once when you are working with Lightning Web Component, I would recommend within the caching, disable this component, disable this checkbox and save it. Otherwise, you will get in this kind of problem where you have made the changes, the updated changes, but those are not reflecting in the UI. That's because of the cache that Salesforce takes. Now you can see we are able to see our account record ID, which is the exact same. And if I really open a different account, maybe Amazon.com, you will see the ID is clearly getting changed. And let's go to the contacts. Okay, some of the contacts, maybe this is the contact that I have. And let's utilize our component here within the contact record page. And you will see that it's automatically going to read our object API name as well as the record ID. So you see here, the object API name is contact. Number of contacts are again going to be the defaulted as true. And this is the record ID of our contact that we are in. Okay. So go ahead, make the changes. do like assign as org default if it is asking for you at all. If not, then you really don't need to worry about. So you see here, if you could just match this record ID which you're seeing on the top, and this is going to match perfectly. So that's basically, you can dynamically read your object API name, and you can dynamically read get the record ID, and then based on the record ID and the object API name, you can perform the actions or the manipulations that you really wanted to perform for your requirement. This is the one part, one piece of your component. There is one more important thing. So if we get back to component and meta.xml file, we already talked about record page. We talked about how to take the inputs. So this component is already available for screen flow. So once you, let's say if you really wanted to take the input from for the target called screen flow as well, right? So here, if you really wanted to take the input, let's say that you wanted to take the input, say maybe selected record or selected record ID, type is a string. Okay, you can label as record ID, and then you can label, you can provide the description as well. You can say selected record ID. And then there is one more variable called role, one more attribute called role, which is only applicable whenever you are using your component within your Lightning flow. And the value is like input only, okay? Or the value is like output only. Or if you remove, it is going to be both input and output only. So if you really just wanted to take the input from the flow in this variable, then use input only. If you really wanted to display this variable as an output, just use the role as output only. Otherwise, keep the role as nothing, blank. So it is going to be, the variable is going to be available for both input and output. Our component is okay. Selected. Yeah, we are getting this error like selected record ID is not available. So maybe you can create the variable. Okay. And the last thing, not the last thing, we already have this component exposed at the Lightning tab. Okay. So you can just go there in your Salesforce org, and then from the setup, you can say tab. And once you are in the tabs, you will see Lightning component tabs. If you click on new, and then here you have to select your component. So you can see our component is here, design component, and you can give the name and select a style, whatever the style you want to have it. Click on next and save it. So now your tab is also created. If you come back here and refresh once in order to get the latest changes, and if you search for now on click of this 9 dots and search for design components, you will see here, right? Your component is here, which says design component, and the other information that we wanted to display. And the other information like object API name, number of contacts, all those are not getting displayed because those are not required for our tab. That is one thing about your tab. You can easily use your component for your flow as well. You can try to use it within the flow, or you can try to create your component as a utility bar as well. Okay. And one thing that is, if we go to Lightning component library, and then if we quick action, not quick action. So yeah, basically we can also utilize our component as a quick action. Maybe let's say we are in the record page of any account. And here we wanted to add a quick action on a, like we wanted to add a button, and then on a click of button, we wanted to do something. So for that, there is a tag we already talked about, right? There is a tag called quick action. So how we are going to utilize that component is, so Let's quickly create a new component because this is already having a lot code. Yeah, before we go ahead and talk about quick actions, anyone has any questions or any confusion or something?
Amit, let's say if those account ID tags and uh, record ID doesn't got the value, that will not show the error on the component, or
No, those will not show the error because if your variable does not have a value,
Mhm,
that's not going to show the error until unless you are trying to access like something because see, record ID is basically nothing. It's a where is that? Let me show you. Yeah, record ID is nothing. It's a data type is string, right, behind the scene, either string or
mhm,
ID. So you cannot going to access any component like this record ID dot name, right? So if your variable is having a very simple like this is a string, it is even it is undefined, those are not going to display any error in the component. But let's say that this field API name is a string, right? This is a string. This is now still a string. Now, as we know that we are expecting the value like this account, maybe name, ID, rating like this, right? But if the value in this variable is undefined and you're trying to do something like this, where you say this dot field API name dot split, and you wanted to split with a comma, and then wanted to store in a separate variable, which is a type of list. Maybe let's say let fields. Then it's going to throw the error because now you're trying to perform some action on a variable which is having a value of undefined. So if you do something like this, you try to perform any manipulation on the variable which is not having any value, you will get into the problem. But if there is no value into that variable and you're not at all doing any manipulation, or you are trying to maybe you are already have checked if there is a value in this variable, then only proceed with the other rendering or the other part of code, then also it's not going to create any problem. Like this, let's say if I go to this HTML component, and then here instead of this object API name, and if I say object API name dot name, right? I'm just trying to access the name property of a variable called object API name, and where object API name is itself undefined. So if we go to our Salesforce org and go to design component, okay, I think we're not getting, yeah, we'll get this kind of error basically, where
okay,
it will say concrete property of undefined reading name. Because this property itself is undefined object API name, we are getting the error. Now maybe you can just go there and say if true, and you can say if there is any value in this variable object API name, then only try to execute this. And then if you go there, sorry, if we deploy this, and then maybe if you refresh this page now, we will not get any error because we have already handled the
mm,
exception, which we are saying that if there is a value, then only do the rendering part of this outcome. Similarly, you can do the same in your JavaScript. Maybe you have a method here, handle click, and you can do like if this dot field API names, if there is some value in the field API names, then only do this part. Otherwise, don't do. So it's not really going to create a problem. And that's how
okay,
we usually take care of our any errors, uncaught exceptions, that kind of things.
okay. And to mandate those property values, so we have anything that's required or like that? Because if the user doesn't provide any value while configuring that component on the page or any other page, so how
It
can
will
we?
not. It will not let you save the record. So if you have a property, let's say I'm going to remove this default value, okay,
Hmm,
for object API name, and if I go ahead, maybe if it is letting me deploy, okay, now our component is deployed. It is set to required, right?
Mhm.
And if you go to your home page and just edit this, click on, okay, by default it says that contact, why it says, or maybe we need to refresh this page. I think we have saved, we already had this contact as an object API name because we saved later on, but let's say if our value is like this, it's really going to, maybe I'm going to get rid of this component first. Okay, and let's say that we have not added the component. Now for the first time we are trying to add our component, and if you say design component here, it says component is invalid. Until unless you don't provide a value, your component is not going to do anything. So if you wanted to make sure it is the required, just set this attribute as required as a true, and then don't provide a default value, and your component is going to throw the error. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the part. Yeah. Any other question? It will always be record ID. It cannot be anything else. If you make it as anything else, it will never read the record ID.
And those are the keywords, right? The object API name and the record ID which you used.
We will not say the keywords. We'll say these are some identifiers that Salesforce does identify. If you have a variable like object API name with the like @API decorated, and the component is sitting in the record detail page, they will return you the object API name of that record.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Any other question? Okay, so yeah, we were talking about the quick action. I think we also created a component called quick contact. Okay. So we are really going to take the help from this document. I'm just going to copy this. There is a basically quick action panel. This is a tag which is used for our quick action, where we can have footers. In the footer, we will see how the quick action looks like. Let me show you first. So if you click on this new contact, and this is how your quick action looks like. There is a footer. On the footer, we've got two buttons. There is a header, and this is the body, right? So for our similar kind of quick action, Salesforce has given a lightning quick action panel where you have got footer, and then you've got this body, and this is your header, which says that my action. Okay, header is nothing, it's a my action. You could make it anything. And then in your meta file, you really have to do like this. Okay, this is really, I will say, let me copy paste. Yeah, I'll just change this to 57. So the same thing we did is expose this set to true. We have defined the targets. This time it is going to be lightning underscore record action. Okay, this is our target. That if we wanted to use our component as a quick action, we will use lightning underscore record action as a target. And we really need to define this target configs, because there are two types of actions. One is a headless action, and one is the pop-up one that we have seen. The one which we have seen is basically it is a normal quick action, and there is a headless action. Okay, headless action actually doesn't open the pop-up here. It actually opens the pop-up here itself. Okay, like this. It opened the pop-up like this. And what is the target for that? I think if you go to the specification, it's not here. There should be. There is one thing called screen action is basically used for displaying your, yeah, these are two things. It could be either action or a screen action. Okay. So if you say, if you action type within the target config, if you define action type as a screen action, your component is going to be opened as a pop-up. And if you define your action type as a action only, your component is going to display as a headless action. Okay, so we will showcase this screen action first. So we have got this screen action is here, quick contact is here. Let's go ahead and deploy this. I'm not making any changes, just taking the help from the document itself. And our component is deployed. Let's first go to, let's say we wanted to create a quick action on account object itself. So go to setup, object manager, account, then button links and action. Click on new action. And from drop down, select lightning web component. Your component is going to be selected because this is the only contact we have. And let's quickly say quick contact and save it. Now we have saved this quick action. We really need to add this quick action into the layout. Otherwise, we will not be able to see it. So we need to go to object API name, page layout. And this is my layout basically, which I'm using for all the account records. So that is, you really need to find out which account layout you are using, because these are the 4 layout that Salesforce does provide for account, contact, and I believe opportunity as well. And so this is the one which is account layout is the main one for me. And within this lightning mobile and experience actions, I really need to add my action. So how you will find it? From the left panel, you need to select mobile and lightning actions. And here you will see your action, that is quick contact. So just drag and drop here and do a quick save. The reason we are doing a quick save, because we are going to test if our component is coming here or not. So let's refresh this. So you can see this quick contact is coming. If you click on this, you will see that your modal is coming up. Hello, can you hear me perfectly?
Like two voices are coming.
I don't. No one else is basically speaking. Is it fine now?
Yes, fine.
Okay. So you can see, right, my action is coming up here, and then this is the content. If I click on cancel, nothing happening, save, nothing happening. And then if I click on this cross icon, it will definitely close my modal. So basically we need to define the methods for cancel and cancel and save to close the modal. That will not look today. And if you really wanted to define, you will basically you'll get everything in this document, but we will also see later on how to close that. That's one thing. This is our we talked about, this is our normal pop-up, normal quick action. But if we wanted to see the headless quick action, how you can do is, maybe let's quickly create another component that I will say as quick opportunity. And I'll just take the input, the same HTML from the previous component as well. And similarly, I'm going to take the same Metafile as well. The only change that we will make here is, this time for the action type, we will make it as action instead of screen action, and deploy this. So now what will happen is, let's quickly, now our component is deployed. Let's quickly create one more action for our account object itself. So this time you will see there are 2 components. One is quick opportunity, one is quick contact. We want quick opportunity. Let's save it. Click on this object name to get back to the account object page and select page layout. Again, we need to add our quick action into the page layout. What happened? What is this? Something really weird happened. Okay, mini page layout. Okay, I really don't see my components. I'll try to switch it to classic. This is really weird that happens. Okay, so I'll quickly go to any accounts. Okay, let's, okay, I'm going to. So if you are in classic, you just need to go to setup, search for accounts, and under that accounts, you'll find page layouts. You see here this accounts. Yeah, this one, page layouts. Edit the one that we wanted to add our component. Go to mobile and lightning actions, search for quick opportunity, drag and drop over here and do the quick save. So now we have added our component as a headless action. Okay, this is by default opened. Let's refresh it. But we will see our component, our action is coming here as quick opportunity. If you click on this, this is how your headless action actually looks like. So that those are not going to show the pop-up, but the component is going to be displayed over here at the below to that quick action. Okay, and then maybe if you wanted to do some background actions and do the close the modal, that you can do. So that's basically the two different kind of quick actions that we can create with the help of Lightning Web Component. So that's what we have for today's session. Any questions? I'm happy to take.